I think one pivotal point was I had to cut my dad out of my life because that was making me not, a very healthy person. So as soon as I did that, I met my husband, and that was one of the first moments I realized, wow, there is a God there, like this is real. And I remember like just laying on the floor, and I looked at him and I was like, if somebody like you can be in my life after all of that, then there has to be a God. Like, you have to just be proof of that. And looking at him and realizing the father that I had, and then seeing the father I could have for my own children, being very polar opposites in the best way, meant that I had, basically been given a gift in my life. Yes, so my name is Korrin Freed. I am from Colorado. I went to Colorado State University. I just recently graduated from there. I moved out to Columbus, Georgia to be with my husband, who is going through infantry basic officer leadership course out here for the Army. And I will soon be going to Arizona for military intelligence basic officer leadership course for the Army.
Awesome. And maybe some of the background around your faith.
Okay. I grew up in a home that was defined as raised to explore, but really my dad was an atheist. He actually was a hard Christian up until I was born. I was the last child to be born, and then he flipped completely, and our household was more raised to be disdainful or hateful towards Christianity. And my mom kind of just goes with whatever her partner of the time is doing. So now she's with my stepfather, who he's Episcopalian. So she's goes to an Episcopalian church, and she's actually found a more clear faith that she actually agrees with and has conviction for. But before, it was just whatever makes the dad happy. So we were really raised in a pretty unstructured way, and especially in terms of religion and Christianity. We didn't have it. So, but moving forward, I found it more when I got to college, and I reevaluated my beliefs politically and religiously, and I also met my husband there, who is a devout Christian, and that kind of open my faith up a little bit to be able to start that journey. So.
And when did you realize that something was wrong in your life? Maybe even in that environment that you grew up in, and then coming into your relationship with your husband. And what did you place your hope in prior to knowing Jesus?
So I very much had pride in my own independence. I knew something was most wrong in my life probably by age 5, because that's the age that my parents divorced, and from there it was just kind of a world of chaos. But that broken home was my earliest memory, and that was when I kind of realized, like, there's not it's not correct how this is, but it's the best that we have. And so I did have, good parenting through my mom, some of my dad, and my 2 older siblings, but I think a lot of it was also on my own. My independence is something I took a lot of pride in. And then it wasn't until I more found Christianity and faith that I realized that independence is not always a good thing. Like, it's good to be an adult. It's good to, take pride in taking care of yourself and growing up. But dependence is something that is taken and kind of smushed in society a lot of the times. And I realized that it's not a bad thing to also depend on others and to depend on a faith too.
When did you first start experiencing Jesus pursuing you and inviting you into relationship with him?
In the 8th grade, I went to Vietnam because my dad moved there. So he had been with my stepmom for 10 years after the divorce with my biological mom. And then he moved to Vietnam in pursuit of business opportunities, but it was also in pursuit of other women that are down there. And so I came out to visit him by myself, and that was another big cornerstone of, trying my independence and trying to be all grown up, even though I was a 14-year-old, so I'm not really a grown up. But I got out there, and that was the first thing he introduced me to. Is just first person was his second fiance out there. And so I was immediately surrounded by a lot of chaos and confusion. I didn't have any understanding of what was going on, and how I was even being taken advantage of as a child. And then I realized that I was really alone and pretty confused in that time. I didn't have guidance from a father in my own household. And I was in Ho Chi Minh City, which is a pretty chaotic city in general. There's a lot of destruction, and there's beauty too. There's physical beauty, but there's a lot of challenges over there. So we took a trip to Hang In, which is a cave in the jungles of Vietnam. We were trekking for like 7 miles to this cave, and it's probably one of the most beautiful things I've seen to this day. And so I realized in the midst of all that chaos and the personal feelings I was facing and the personal loneliness I was facing, but seeing this like completely juxtaposition of like the nature contrasting against that, I felt like this hand on my shoulder. It was just like kind of a calling to, this is a, you don't have the words to describe this yet because you haven't seen this, and you haven't been guided towards anything like this, but it was just this feeling of something's bigger than me that I can have faith in.
And from that moment on, what were some of the things that you noticed, maybe from that point to meeting your husband and building a relationship with him, that you saw Jesus was continuing to pursue your heart and continuing to invite you into relationship with him?
I would say from that moment, I feel like I kind of numbed myself to any, if there was any calling to me at that point on. That was me going into high school, from high school to college. So during that transition of time, I think that even if there was signs or callings out to me, I didn't let myself hear them, because I had like, I think the amount of things that happened, especially in Vietnam, and then with what was going on still in my family, I didn't like feeling very much. So it was, so, to feel other people around you, like I was already pushing them away. So then for it to be something way bigger than just a person around you, like I wasn't ready to feel that. So I honestly do think that I give him a lot of credit, my husband, but I think that meeting him was maybe the second time ever that I felt that immediate like, wow, there has to be something out there, because for somebody to be this amazing and feel this much love towards just a person, like there has to be something. Especially what I came from, I was statistically much more likely to end up with not a great person. So that was kind of it was like proof to me. But I think part of the sacrifice of that was having to also cut things out of my own life or my family that were not healthy. They were just, sicknesses that were not really curable. So I think that was, yeah.
And what were some of the challenges and struggles that you faced as Christ began opening your heart?
I will say that any interest I did express within religion, I could express it in my mom and stepdad's household, and I was very novice. I still do feel that way, but I when I was at my dad's household, I think that was the biggest challenge. Was, I think Christianity's built on like there should be a father figure that is guiding you in life, and so to have your own father figure being really hateful towards that community was very challenging, because it was hard for me to look past how he had taught me to believe about Christianity, and he had just taught like just pure anger towards it, and so that was pretty challenging to overlook. And then when I was involved with a group of Christians who were really always kind to me and always trying to just teach me and answer any questions I had, I always felt a more personal challenge of, if I share like my father was an atheist, or if I share this is the upbringing I had, I would feel like there were judgments on me, but they weren't even, it was my judgment on myself. So I think that was the biggest challenge I faced, was the personal feelings about it.
Mm. What was so compelling about Jesus, especially amidst that uh, maybe hostility towards him coming from your father? What was so compelling about Jesus in contrast to that, and why did you finally say yes to his authority and kingship in your life?
Maybe a silly answer, but I watched everyone just so much happier. Like the there was just pure anger in my household, and watching the contrast to just people who are happy. And I never saw anyone shoving it in my face or like telling me I was a bad person for not feeling that way. And there was just like, it's that same feeling I would get being out in nature, seeing those beautiful scenes that you don't even have words to put to, but I would get that from people within a Christian community, that they were just very kind to me. And when I was a little kid and I would lash out about religion, and just it was my dad's words through me, the people who I would think would be offended by me, and they just saw me as a little kid who didn't have guidance to know any better, and they were never anything but just kind to me. So I think that was a big part of what made it more accessible to me, and then also made it easier for me to put my pride aside, what I had been taught all these years, um, and give in to that, and realize that it's not weak to have faith in something other than yourself, and it's not strong to have this like kind of dependence on this bigger faith, this power that's above you, because it's honestly a lot stronger, and it leads to what I witnessed was a lot more happiness than destruction.
And can you describe the moment or the series of events that took place where you finally gave your yes to Jesus and accepted him as your Lord and Savior?
Hmm. I would say, I don't know if it's an exact moment, more of like a series of events, but I I think one pivotal point was I had to cut my dad out of my life, because um, even if his sickness was I was able to be around that, it was making me feel like worse of a person, or I was okay with things being around me that weren't okay or healthy, and that was making me not, a very healthy person. So as soon as I did that, I met my husband, and that was one of the first moments I realized, wow, there is a God there. Like, this is real. Is I was just sitting in a room with him, and we like to have wrestling matches because we like to fight, and I remember like just laying on the floor, and I looked at him and I was like, if somebody like you can be in my life after all of that, then there has to be a God. Like, you have to just be proof of that, and looking at him and realizing the father that I had, and then seeing the father I could have for my own children, being very polar opposites in the best way, meant that I had, basically been given a gift in my life. Um, so I think that was probably a pivotal moment. And then the day that we marriage was a big day for sure, but the day we got engaged was actually on a mountaintop. My spiritual health and just feeling that kind of Holy Spirit. So the day we got engaged, we were up on a 14er, and every piece of it came together. The seeing that, that view and feeling the wind blow past you, and it's a very powerful scene. And then, also giving yourself to the person you're going to be with the rest of your life, was all those pieces coming together and realizing, like, I'm a part of this now.
That's really cool. Um, you've touched on it a little bit, and I wonder, did saying yes to Jesus's invitation to follow him cost you anything?
Yes, and to be fair, it cost me something before the yes. So, just a decision to be healthier, and um, just accepting myself a little bit more, was to push my father out of my life. And that didn't come with myself. It was also my older siblings who had kind of made that leap before, so it was easier for me to do. But I would say that really the cost of it, and it's maybe cost is a bad word, since I think it pushed out a lot of anger that I had, and it pushed out a lot of ego as well that I had learned to have. And so I think it really only gave blessings. There's not much that it wouldn't have cost in the first place.
Mm. How would you define how your identity has changed since saying yes to Jesus?
Um, I would say my identity's changed, where I feel a lot more, just in general, open minded to the fact that, you could come from something completely different, indoctrinated into your life, from a little kid, where that's all you're learning. And that's like the most spongy your brain is going to be. So the fact that you can go from that to um, almost completely opposite of what your beliefs are, is, I think, it's not it's not just a miracle. It's also it's just the definition of, you need to realize that you never know what someone's going through, and you could always be opposite down the road of what you believe. And even in high school, my identity was strong on not seeing the bigger picture, not critically thinking, and not thinking for myself. And as I got to college, and I opened myself up to my own faith, and as well as just trying to learn the bigger picture of, if you're complaining about something in the world, you might not fully understand it. And I learned that first of all, I need to serve, which is why I went into the Army. And I was not at all interested in the Army before college. And in general, my identity shifted, where the the interests were not on myself anymore. It was on something bigger, whether that's my faith, but also my country, and serving for that.
And how does your relationship with Jesus affect your life now?
I'd say it makes me stronger, and I'd say also a better leader. I can put my faith in something else, so I can feel confident that others can put their faith in me. And my husband and I talk about it all the time. His role is going to be combat leadership, so that's a lot more pressure. Both of our jobs will have pressure, but him in different ways than mine, for sure. And um, we talk about how that faith can just push anyone through, and if you can lead yourself in that, then you can definitely lead a platoon of people or more, and touch the lives of others as well.
As we wrap up, I have one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who is Jesus to you?
That's a good question. I thought a lot about this question. Um, to me, it's really, Jesus is obviously a lot of things. That's why it's a big question to answer. But it's anytime I feel that surge of love and spirituality, and and it hits in waves. It's not this all the time constant feeling for me. I have to be aware of it and consciously bring my brain to realize what I'm feeling in the moment. But to me, that's like everything love I feel for my family, for my spouse, and for the people that I would lead, the people that lead me. And anytime I step out into, the kingdom of the nature outside, and I feel that surge of energy and know that that's the feeling that first brought me to this faith a long time ago.
Is he a father figure to you?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's probably what probably some of the reason that it brought me into the faith is that I was craving that as well, and I realized that that's a big part of Christianity, and I wanted to have that.
Korrin, thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for the interview.